Alright, so I'm Scrimshire and I'm going to take you through a new song called Within Without. Came out on the 23rd of July. This was written with also Jessica Lauren, and I've got Huw Marc Bennett on bass and Nick Woodmansey, aka Emanative, on percussion on here, and a group called Parallax Orchestra playing strings. And yeah, I'm going to take you through the process of how this one came to be. It's probably the longest project on the album. I started it quite early on with a set of chords that I wrote for a new string sample library that I just got hold of, which was the Spitfire chamber strings. And there's this beautiful sound, flottando. It's gorgeous and it's just so airy and everything. And I was playing around with those sounds to get a set of chords. So yeah, this it's a phrase that's almost half of the phrase, and then it continues again. It's almost the same, but the opening few chords are slightly changed, simplified, I suppose, in a way. And in here you can see that basically I just then repeated that 2.5 times later on. I ended up creating a gap. It was a really beautiful chord progression, but it was becoming very much too much of a good thing. It was getting quite tedious, in fact, to hear it over and over. And so I created this kind of 2-chord section that would just give a space for some exploration and improvisation. And I think I first started playing around with this Rhodes sound, this phasing sound. There's a phase pedal called a Mutron biphase, and this is an emulation that I have called the Bitron, presumably an unofficial emulation by Arturia. And yeah, and it's this phase pedal. It's really it's unique in how it sounds. And actually it was Jessica who introduced me to this sound, probably the first time that we recorded together, which was back in 2007, I think, on my first single, You Will Save Me. That was the very first time that we collaborated together, and that was out on Wild by 45s, yeah, a while ago now. So Jessica introduced me to this. It's so amazing. I've actually got it running also through this chorus emulation, and then into a reverb chamber as well to get a really big sound. Let's listen to that. It's here. So if I go a bit further in, and I'll take the phase off, I'll take all the effects off. So this is just straight. This is my Nord Rhodes. My Fender Rhodes, unfortunately, is somewhere else with Dave Core, in fact, but I've got his Juno as a result. So that's the unphased version, and this is the phase. Nice and crunchy, and then the additional chorus just gives it a little bit more depth, and then the reverb just for, you know, give it that atmosphere. So yeah, I've written these chords, but to be honest, I didn't have it in me to solo and play what I wanted out of this song, and especially not once the chords come in and the complexity of the movement around there and the changes. I can't do it. I couldn't do it. And Jessica was top of my list and asked to get involved with that. There's drums in here as well that I programmed at the time. That was very much where it was, the initial part of making this. So my next step was thinking there's a massive lack of energy, and I think that's coming down to what I can achieve with the programming with something that's so dynamic as a piece of music. I was also completely stuck on the bass. I knew that I could probably get something in the first section with just a couple of chords going on, but soon, again, once it got to this part, finding something that was interesting, melodic, but not over the top, and that really found the interesting harmonic kind of stuff in the chords, I just didn't feel I could do it. I certainly couldn't have done it on the bass guitar, and I was struggling to do it on the Moog as well. So eventually that went off to Huw Marc Bennett, but it was lockdown. He was in Wales at the time, so he wasn't able to actually get that recording down for me until much later on. And all of these kind of things kind of racked up for lockdown and trying to get lots of different things together. It all added to the time that this song took to make, which kind of helped it, I guess, in some ways. But the first thing that I did do was get these sample drums exchanged out and get Chris Boot in. And to be fair, it's a really tough ask on Chris, because I mean, you can hear the lack of energy in the track and like the lack of focus in the track at this point in time. Nothing's really going on, and I was expecting him to deliver a big part of that, which he did. You know, in almost in a vacuum, which is insane, really. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up one of the later projects, and we'll go into the changes that gradually, progressively happened. So one of the things was that I was really, I think, unsure that I could do the string arrangement that would really understand how to get the most out of these chords that I'd written. In the end, during the process of waiting for various parts to come together, I decided that it was something that I really needed to face up and just do. It's something that I wanted to do. It's something I wanted to be better at, and we've gone over this in the past where I've worked with synthesizers and layered up notes and individual melodic lines in order to create chords. So it's not a huge step away from doing that. And what I did in the end was nothing particularly complex, of course, but to bring the chords across and separate them out. The higher notes, then the next note, then the notes below that, and then the note before that, and then the bass note, and basically allocate them to violins. We've got 3 violin parts in total here, 2 viola parts, and then a cello part. And once they were separated out, I could start to hear particular melodies that certain instruments should be playing. So we started to tug at it a little bit more and take it away from just being the chords. These lines. Let's just listen to this. You can hear it's not a whole lot different. And then later on there's more discord and kind of more challenging moments with it. This actually gave me the way to break out of the tedium of just the repeating chords as well. So towards the end then we get into these just repeating the end phrase. Dynamic change. And that's what we sent off to go and be orchestrated, thanks to my friend Matt Nicholson. We took this to a group called Parallax Orchestra. They actually recorded down in, I think it's Somerset, and one night, and I remotely joined in to listen and give any guidance which wasn't needed. They were incredible, and I mean I can't even conceive of how they do it, to read off the page and play with all of the dynamic information that was in there, and there was lots of dynamic information as well as the notes and the rhythm. It's mind-bending to me. I can't even comprehend it. Anyway, they did that. And I'll get to the actual live recording later on. Then we have Huw Marc Bennett dropped this bass line in for me, back from lockdown in Wales. As you can see here, I pretty much took exactly as it was. There's a slight thing towards the end where Huw continued to follow the chord changes, and actually what I wanted to do was to pull everything down to a single chord before we start going to the complexity of the chorus. and the string arrangement. So I just chopped it a little bit around here, but that's literally it. So also here we can actually see Jessica's parts came in not long after that as well. We'd at this point spent a lot of time on the phone talking about exactly what we wanted to achieve, and a few emails as well, back and forth, sending references, some Bill Evans bits and pieces that I was really into, but just discussing ideas for how to come to this. Jessica sent me this with the reverse and then into these beautiful chords, and what you can see is she's layered up 2 sets of chords here. And Jessica's such a conscientious writer of chords and understander of feeling and how they interact with the piece. I've had the pleasure of actually sitting with her, watching her go through this and how each one changes the emotion, and it's a beautiful thing to see, and that's why I love working with her so much. And in fact, with these opening chords in particular, she kind of changed the feel a little bit on what I'd originally done with the strings, which is again the perfect reason for collaborating with people who find that extra thing that you didn't have in it yourself. And it's just, the playing is just incredible, and it's just, yeah. So there we have that with the drums. Oh, Nick Woodmansey's on percussion. I added a little bit of bongos to this later on. That's in the mix project. We can go and look at that in a little bit. Hugh's bass. Drums. The only other thing that I added into this project was some of the grandmother, the Moog grandmother. I just wanted to add a little bit more atmosphere and also to follow some of the chord changes. I'm going to go along to the mix project now, and we'll have a look at that and see how that came together. So I guess the big thing here is the strings. We only had a quartet, but what we did was layer them up multiple times. In each take, the violin players would swap parts. So we did multiple takes of each run through in order to get people swapping and get that extra sound. And this is what you've got. There's bits of automation, and I copied across the crescendo parts of the strings to get the real build up into the Rhodes chord. And really, this is it. It seems mad. It seems mad that really, when it comes down to it, it feels like a really simple project. There seems to be so little going on ultimately in it. These are the bongos and djembe that I did. Drums, percussion. There's Nick's percussion down here. The Moogs. And really that's it. It seems mad to look back at it now and see how long it took, but I guess that every single part of that time gave me time to evolve as well, to get into doing the arrangements and to do all of the work that it took to make this the song that it is in the end. And I'm just so glad that it did. It was the very last thing that I mixed. We got the strings through about a week before we mastered the record, and I mixed it all and got it tidied up. And that was that. This is Within Without, featuring Jessica Lauren.